Hello everyone, this is Chris with my YouTube channel, Chris the PA Writer. I'm located in the Pittsburgh, PA area, and this is video 4 of Talking Points. So let's get started. So, Library of Circlaria thus far. Right now, my big assignment is the 3rd level society story series. And I'm working on character development for Story 2. There are a few things with the other stories of that series that I'm working on, and it's all part of a work cycle. After I take part in that work cycle, I will do a final revision of Story 2, and then it will be published. Now, the 3rd Level Society website. I just want to clarify, it's actually different from the story series. The story series is about the 3rd Level Society established by Circlarians in Circlaria. The 3rd Level Society website I'm setting up, however, is the basis of the Arterian realm in our world. I have 20 sub-narratives done with that, and I'm debating on whether or not to post those on Patreon to leave them open to feedback as editable drafts. I will keep you guys posted in the coming days and weeks. Closely related to Library of Circlaria, Patreon. I have some tiers that are fairly expensive, around $15 a month. However, I just want to let you guys know that I've very recently created a work sample tier that shows samples of the works that I've done in the more expensive tiers of Patreon, and that tier is only $5 a month. So that's where I am in terms of progress that I've made on my content platform thus far. Now, I feel like I owe you guys a background of myself, so I'm going to go ahead and spend the next few moments talking about who I am, where I came from, and where I'm going. So shortly after I graduated from high school, I went to a 4-year university, initially intent on being a music education major. Some of you may remember me from undergrad school. I was originally going to be a music educator. Between 2009 and 2013, I was basically on a learning curve, both with that material and just learning what it took to be competent. Music education is a very, very, very competitive field. However, I just want to let you guys in on something. Starting in 2011, so about 2 years after I graduated high school, I was starting to get thoughts in my head about the world-building world that would ultimately become Circlaria. And I had those thoughts floating around my head until actually as early as May of 2013. That was when I first put pencil to paper and started writing journal entries, drawing maps of what would become Circlaria. That's all I had at the time. Between 2013 and 2016, I wrote a lot of entries, drew maps in my free time, and around that time I just considered it a hobby because, once again, I thought I was going to be a music educator. So that segues into the switch I made from being a music educator to being the content creator of Circlaria. All throughout 2013, my interest in writing grew very continually. And that actually started to pose a conflict to my music education career. Around January and February 2014, I went to a music educator conference, and there was a principal, I think it was a principal or a professor, or someone that was at one time a principal in a school district, gave a lecture outlining the importance of dedicating all of your time as a music educator. And it was around that time that I started to have my doubts as in terms of whether or not to continue my music education. So, moving forward into the summer of 2014, I came to a point where there was a requirement as part of the curriculum to take and pass a state standard exam as in terms of fulfilling one of a multitude of certain stringent requirements to become a student teacher. These tests were expensive. They were like $100, and this was back in 2014. I don't know how much it costs to take those tests now, but at the time, I didn't have a full-time job. I was a college student, so I was low on money. And also at that time, I was becoming increasingly undecided on whether or not to throw all my commitment behind music education or writing. It was in summer of 2014 that I had been forced to forego that exam because of my money situation. And that pushed me into the decision, and that was the turning point for me, where I decided it was time to begin the gradual process of pulling out of my music education career and go fully into writing content creation. So I spent my fall semester of college, fall of 2014. That was my final semester at college, and I finished that semester and I graduated with my music degree. However, I did that without doing student teaching. So I have the degree in music, but I don't have a teaching license. And so that leads into the spring of 2015. Now, I just want to provide a little bit of context. I had a studio teaching job, giving private lessons to students, which I had started doing in the fall of 2013. I still had that teaching job. And in the beginning of 2015, I had this idea that I could pull revenue from that teaching job while developing my writing career, which was still all on paper with the journal entries and maps. However, I very, very quickly ran into the issue of needing an actual full-time job. So I went to a temp agency. They gave me a full-time job that was a full-time temporary job. However, I had transitioned into a full-time job at the end of 2015 going into 2016, and that full-time job was closer to where I lived. I moved back in with my parents in 2015. So going into 2016, it was all a balancing act of my full-time job, my developing writing career, and my studio teaching job. And so then in 2016, that was the year that I finally started putting all my writing material onto text files, image files, and started writing text files of storylines in what would become my blog entries and my maps. And it was around 2016, 2017 that I first started calling my world Circlaria. So I started pulling it all together. So that leads me into 2017. My personal circumstances, which kind of factored in some of the worries I had about the political landscape around me around 2017, led me to consider getting skills in more into computer programming, more specifically data science. Why did I do this? My writing career, Circlaria, content development, it was a little bit slow to take off. And I reasoned with myself that computer programming, more specifically data science, was a very close, doable skill for me that would help allocate funding to float my financial needs in the time while I was developing my writing career. And then I was also hopeful that it would boost my skills in that very broad tech market that I was looking at, which I realized today was pretty much content creation. However, there were some issues with my approach to this, and this was 5 years ago. So writing and data science had, by that point, dominated my needs and interests. And there was one vocation that was left behind, and that was my music teaching. And I came to the realization that the need to commit to teaching in order to give music students a quality education, which I value very highly, required so much time commitment into music teaching. So much time and focus is needed for that. And I just came to the realization that I just couldn't do that due to the aforementioned vocational strain between writing and data science. So I made a very, very important decision. In late 2017, I decided to leave my studio teaching job with the expectation that teaching position I was leaving would be filled by another candidate who, quite frankly, deserved the opportunity. You know, somebody who is more focused, more committed to solely music education. And I believe in I really felt very strongly that there was somebody out there who really deserved that opportunity. And I felt like with my developing vocations and the conflicts, I was potentially cheating somebody of that opportunity. So that was why I decided to leave my music teaching job. So going into 2018, I had data science interests, which started to morph. A lot of the online courses I took involved web development, and I really started gravitating toward web development as a more closely related skill. And I came to the realization that creating web pages would really help with the library of Circlaria. So I started focusing more on online courses in skills, very basic skills like HTML, JavaScript, PHP. I installed a local server on my laptop, and I made very, very primitive HTML pages of Library of Circlaria content. This was back in 2018, by the way, summer of 2018. And I focused primarily on timeline entries. And 2018 was really when I started to get interested in web development. It was all local, however, in the year 2018. It was in March of 2019 that I went public. That was a big month for me because that was when I put my very first web page on a public server, HostGator. And my very first website was thechrisnoterhub.com. And that's still up, by the way. And I'm about to make big changes to that. Shortly after that, I put up what is now my old Library of Circlaria site on that same public server. Now, around that time, there was another cut I made to my music career. Since 2013, I had every summer have been partaking in a summer opera gig. It happened around June. We would rehearse that week, and then that Friday, I think it was that Friday or Saturday, we would put one show of the opera. And I was in there summer of 2013, 2014, 2015, 16, 17, 18. Those were very wonderful experiences, very enlightening for me, very unforgettable. I played, we did operas like Madama Butterfly, Rigoletto, Il Trovatore. I had very fond memories, and I'm very thankful to the people who gave me that opportunity. And I just don't know how to put words to it. Those were very, very good experiences for me. The issue I came to in 2019, though, was web development, content creation, library of Circlaria. Those were very, very important vocations for me, and still are today. And those were growing commitments for me. And I came to the realization that those were really conflicting with the commitments required to be a quality musician. And once again, like with my studio teaching job, I felt like, those conflicts were leading me to cheat other more focused musicians of an opportunity. So, out of respect for the music profession, I decided to withdraw out of that gig. And I understand that there were short-term disappointments, but in the long term, I felt like by doing this, I was saving people a lot of trouble. And for the rest of 2019, I threw all my commitment behind web development and content creation, blog writing, library of Circlaria, with my goal to establish all of this as a platform integrating all of my skills. And that led me into 2020. And it was in the beginning of 2020 that I decided to try and develop a very hot trending skill at the time. Something called software testing, which is basically where you create a software model that goes in and accesses web pages to test and see how those web pages respond. And I had read up that it was a trending skill, and there was a very hot job market for it. And I was hopeful of the benefit that it would jumpstart my tech career, primarily by boosting social networking. So I did something, and this was around the time the pandemic started. From around that time, March 2020, to around June, I did something. I temporarily shelved Library of Circlaria and threw all my commitment into developing software testing skills. This was a mistake that I will never repeat again. So I took a bunch of online courses in software testing. I completed the coursework. I got the online certifications off of a certain online course platform. I created a very primitive test model, and I don't know if I can dig that up again, but I thought that demonstrating a simple understanding of software testing would land me a job, because they're in demand, right? Software testers are in demand, right? So I sprang a job search around July 2020. I barely got any responses, and I got a lot of rejection emails from a lot of employers. So it was, I forget which job search platform it was, but there was an interactive job post, and it was actually demonstrating the number of applicants for one position, and I saw that the ratio was 200 applicants to one position. And so I kind of spread my wings out between summer of 2020 and early 2021, I started trying to see if I could land some temporary freelance gigs to do alongside my full-time job, or maybe do some freelancing stuff as my full-time work. And I was kind of flexing out my job search, and there was, quite frankly, there was a lot of crappy freelancing opportunities. But the thing that got me was even the really crappy freelancing opportunities were hopelessly competitive. Like there were, I saw, for example, a freelancing gig that had a lot of really crappy commitments, and it got snatched up within 20 minutes of it being posted. It got snatched up. So by March of 2021, I came to the realization that even with the crappiest freelance job postings, full commitment was required to software testing, software development, web development as a separate job. No room at all for Library of Circlaria. So I made a decision to completely drop throwing my commitment behind developing software testing skills. And I threw all of my commitment behind Library of Circlaria. And basically my approach has been, if there is, and I've been researching trends on how to best go public with Library of Circlaria across the internet. And if there is a skill that I need to pick up, I would pick up that skill, but I wouldn't take online courses. I have not been taking online courses. I've been picking up the resource, the skill, trying it out directly with Library of Circlaria, and then I would do research if there's any issues that come up. That's basically the approach I've been taking. The most important thing, the biggest takeaway from what I've been doing since March of 2021 is Library of Circlaria is always the center of my agenda. Always. I will never, ever shelve Library of Circlaria ever again. So, speaking of which, starting in late 2020, I kind of did some research, and I saw WordPress as a good content management system, CMS. And so I set up a WordPress platform and transferred a lot of my Library of Circlaria content from my old website to the website you see today. And that's what I've been using ever since. Library of Circlaria /WP, that's WordPress. And then in late 2021, about a year later, I was doing some research and I found Substack, which is an online writing platform. So I established an account on Substack, and I've been putting a lot of Library of Circlaria content. That's the Substack site that you see there. And I'm still using that. And then this past summer, I came to the realization that it's possible that people might suspect that what I'm posting on Facebook may be a scam or maybe spam. I felt like there needed to be a human face to Library of Circlaria. So I decided to start my YouTube video, which is what you're seeing right now. And then I also realized I need to put a variety of content on my platforms. So I also started Patreon. And so here I am. That's me right now. So future plans. In terms of the Third Level Society story series, there's going to be more Substack posts coming. I'm just putting a lot of time commitment due to care for quality. So it might be a little while before I start posting Third Level Society stories, but I've been doing a lot of stuff on the back end. And then Patreon, I'm going to be putting up a lot of these YouTube videos on my Patreon. And I'm also going to be doing a lot of Circlaria informational vlogs, which I'll put on here and on Patreon. I'm going to be putting more Circlaria content from my website and Substack, and going to be reposting it on my Patreon. And I'm also, if you've noticed, I have a lot of general photographs on Patreon. And I'm going to be continuing to do that. I'm going to be putting content on Patreon from my personal photos. The nature photos I've been taking a picture of, the weather photos I've been taking a picture of, I'm going to be doing more of that. Especially, it's late September now, so the leaves are going to start turning color. I'm going to be taking a lot of pictures. I'm also going to be increasing my presence on social media, especially Facebook, which I noticed has been they've been developing a lot of advertising tools, which I think will be beneficial. So here is where I go to my biggest challenge. Most basically, nobody is yet aware of my content platform. Just nobody's aware of it yet. Nobody is aware that it exists yet. So right now, as my current resolution, I'm working out commitments from close people. In terms of a commitment of what is most comfortable for them, in terms of subscribing, sharing, subscribing to my Patreon. I think I might even make a free online tier to post content. And I'm basically just going to be increasing my presence through more posts, more videos. And by the way, if you're watching this video, you can help, by the way, by sharing this video, by sharing my other videos, by sharing my content off of Patreon, Substack, Library Circlaria, and leaving comments here on YouTube, here on Patreon, on my Facebook page, leaving comments, feedback, constructive feedback. And as of today, it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, September 30th, 2022. As of this very moment, my circle is currently very, very small. I just don't have a lot of people following yet. But I am quite hopeful. I'm working on building that right now. Once again, you can help by sharing my video, sharing my content, providing feedback. Very, very much encouraged. So that's where I'm at right now. And that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up and or leave a comment and hit that subscribe button. And also please consider subscribing and contributing to my Patreon and my Substack. It will certainly be a great help for me. In any case, I will be making more videos and content soon. So I will see all of you in a later video.